Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, your ticket to all things college football. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship to college rivalries to bowl games to the Heisman Trophy to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the GSMc College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMc Podcast Network. I am your host, Danielle, and it is a beautiful Tuesday afternoon where I'm recording currently in San Diego, California, where I feel like I will be for literally the rest of my life. Also, I want to say that if you hear a fan in the background, we are currently going through what is considered by many as the worst heat wave we've had in about 20 years. It is 95 degrees in my room. We do not have air conditioning. And also, our electricity is currently being, our electricity bill is being quadrupled between the hours of 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. every single day this week. And it is 1 o'clock, so my computer is charged. I have an iced cold brew with me. My fan is going. My parents said we'll settle for the fan charges. So if you hear the fan going, it's on low. Don't worry. But I genuinely don't think I could get through this without heat stroke. It is a sunny day out. I hope you all are having a wonderful Thursday when you were listening to this. I have had an excellent week so far. Over the weekend, I really didn't do much. If you are from San Diego, I went to Little Italy, California. Or not California, it's a place in San Diego. It's kind of like a Little Italy, literally. I went with some friends, and it was very fun. And then just did a lot of work, honestly. Something you might not know about me is I am in a sorority, and we are currently going through sorority recruitment, so we are getting ready for that. We have our polish week and everything, so I have been on Zooms all day today, and that is why this is my 4th cup of coffee. I'm pretty sure it's like actually my 6th because I use a big jar, but we need lots of energy today because sorority recruitment is tiring. I am an Alpha Chi Omega at the University of Colorado Boulder. If you were unaware, I don't think this pertains to literally any of you guys, but if I sound a little drained or tired today, that is why, but I wanted to get this up for you guys. I wanted to make it a good podcast, so let's get into it. A little life updates as well. As I mentioned, some of you guys asked, one of my dogs does have cancer right now. He is doing well. He's actually doing very well. The weather is not good for him. Honestly, I don't think it's good for any of our dogs. We have 5 huskies. And that is an update. I'm starting my classes next week, by the way. I will be a senior at Boulder. If you listen to any of my episodes, then you would know that I go to Boulder because I seem to mention it every episode I can. I guess it pertains to college football because the Pac-12 is canceled now. So does it pertain to college football? Who knows? Anyways, all that fun jazz. Not really much to update y'all on. It was kind of a slow week in college football news, I have to say. But we will get into it today. So here is how our news is going to break down and how we're going to get into it. Segment 1, we're going to go over all the updates we've heard, the petitions, the student rights movements, schools are picking up, how we're stopping the spread, updates on the 3 conferences still playing as well, and then we're going to get into the top 6 storylines to follow this season in college football, and then a little fun segment here, kind of break it up from the analytical deep diving on players and teams. I thought of 4 ways that we could make this season as fun as possible if football gets canceled. And rounding it off, we have a top 10 college football uniforms, because again, we want to keep it light, fun-hearted today. Things are pretty serious in the world right now. There's a lot going on. And so without further ado, let us get into it. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. I make my own oat milk. That's like something weird I do. My boyfriend thinks it's weird. But anyways, you guys, let us get on into it. So last week I briefly touched upon, I spent a majority of our segment number 2, talking about player rights movements and players' voices and activists. And thank you guys for the response to that. I really try not to get too political on here, but obviously I have an opinion, I have a voice, and it is hard to talk about things like players being paid and student unions and players' rights without getting, even not political, but just saying how you feel. And some people might not agree with you, and that's okay. That's something I'm learning as I grow more in the sports world. But thank you guys for that. And I really also just want to say that my opinions are my opinions, and I try not to offend anyone with them, but yeah. So with that all being said, that little disclaimer, Justin Fields, the star quarterback for Ohio State University, is it the Ohio State? Whenever I have friends that commit, not even friends, but people I know that commit to Ohio State, they're always like, the Ohio State, in their like graduation card or something. I think it's funny. I mean, obviously, if I could go to Ohio State, I would, because that's a good school. But, so Justin Fields, their star quarterback, who I have mentioned a boatload of times on this podcast, he has started a petition to relaunch the Big Ten season. And this, as of yesterday morning, Monday morning, had over 23,000 signatures. Justin Fields tweeted that this is a cause close to my heart, and he urged people to sign the petition. The campaign said it is asking the Big Ten to allow its players and teams to make their own choices as to whether they wish to play or opt out of the fall season. This petition follows the Big Ten's decision to postpone the 2020 season based on medical advice regarding the coronavirus pandemic, because if you have not forgotten, we are living in a pandemic right now, and we will get into that. Again, I never try to get political with the pandemic. I know I have people in my life that don't believe it's real. To those people, I don't agree. But anyways, there is a vote from the conference presidents and the chancellors that also determined that the Big Ten will postpone their fall 2020 season. Again, postpone is a very loose term. They are hoping they can play in the spring, but this is really up in the air. There's many medical experts that are predicting we will have a second wave of this. And in the petition, Fields wrote that the players believe the safety protocols have been established and can be maintained to mitigate concerns to exposure to COVID-19. He goes on to say that he believes the players should be able to make decisions about what is best for their health and future. So I think that Fields definitely has a point there. This goes back to, again, to their voices. Will a petition like this jumpstart the Big Ten to want to restart their season completely? I don't know, because there are medical experts that made this decision. And I'll say this time and time again, what are these medical experts seeing that like the other 3 conferences aren't? That's besides the point. But good on Fields. I think this really, again, is kind of just showing the player movement that is going on and the voices players have, and really how they are not just a sideline character to the show. They really are the show, and they deserve to have their voices heard. And another little headline I kind of wanted to touch upon is the SEC released their schedule. And as you guys know, they added 2 more games. And let's just say that there's been some controversy of it. Some people have accused teams like Alabama and Georgia, LSU, and Florida for giving themselves an easier schedule with the 2 additional games. So this is an excerpt from the ESPN article about it, giving Alabama the conference's 8th best and 12th best teams per SP, plus for their 2 bonus games, giving LSU the 12th best and 14th best, giving Georgia its 11th, Mississippi State and 13th best giving its 11th. Mississippi State and Arkansas, and giving Florida its 13th best team is a perfect way to go about getting an easier schedule. So this kind of goes back to the controversy about the college football playoff, how that's going to go this season. Will we have a fair chance? I mean, our team's going to kind of rig it based on their schedule, and this definitely gives themselves an easier schedule to try to rig that. I don't think that's the intention, but you never know. And now I want to touch on another topic, I guess, that is a little controversial, if you could. We will get into it later in this podcast when we talk about the big storylines, but the political aspect of college football is not one that we can overlook. I want to encourage you guys all to vote this fall and this winter and really show your voice. this is the first election I will be able to vote in, and I'm very excited to express my voice. I feel, especially because it has been 100 years especially because it has been 100 years since women have gotten the right to vote officially. And I think that the political aspect of college football is very known. So a majority of the states still playing in college football. The three conferences, the ACC, the Big 12, and the SEC, are red states, and we all know that there's a re-election coming up and that our president is Republican, and those red states often lean with that political party. And the Big 10 and Pac-12, they have postponed their seasons to early 2021. The ACC, Big 12, and SEC remain committed to a full season. And I think that because of that, it's just those states that have committed to playing are definitely more red states. And we'll get into this later in the segment, so I don't want to dive too deep into it, but it is definitely something that has come up in the news recently. And also something we want to get into. So let's get back to the decision for the three conferences to continue playing. As we know, the ACC, Big 12, and SEC have committed. The NCAA has little to no control over college football. It's really up to each of their conferences and for them to make their own decision. And so this is the NCAA will give their opinion, which they have, and say what they believe. But at the end of the day, it's the conferences who make the decisions. And NCAA, it is safe to say they're not in agreement with these three conferences' decision. And the NCAA Chief Medical Officer, Brian Hainline, had a message for these conferences on CNN on Saturday night. He said, "Right now, if testing in the U.S. stays this way, there's no way we can go forward with sports." He said this again to CNN. And I think it's very interesting to see that the NCAA doesn't necessarily agree with what is going forward with these three conferences. Obviously, they want the best for college football, and they want a season to happen. But I think it's very interesting that their medical experts are telling them that it's not safe. And he put it more, later in his appearance, he put it more just bluntly, I guess. We are not in a place today where we can safely play sports. And again, what the heck did the ACC, SEC, and Big 12 find that the Pac-12 and Big 10 didn't? So what did these medical experts find? Because we've heard interviews saying that it's safe to play college football, and we believe we can do it in a safe and healthy manner. And obviously there are the arguments of the players are safe for doing it, and for a lot of players, for a lot of players as well, it's a really safe place for them. It's what makes them comfortable and happy, and it gives them a home and takes them off the streets in some cases, and that's obviously important. I never want to sound like I'm saying we can't have college football, but I definitely am pessimistic, and also I do care about the health and safety of our country and these players as well. And as you saw recently in weeks with the Florida State allegations and the Colorado State allegations, there is players who do not feel safe. But athletic director from Alabama, Greg Bryant, tweeted out a photo of people not wearing masks on Sunday. He said, "Who wants college sports this fall? Obviously not these people. We've got to do better than this for each other and our campus community. Please wear your mask." And it's a picture of people on the Alabama the University of Alabama campus not wearing masks. And as some of you might know, Alabama went through recruitment this year, and they just had in-person bid day. I know for Boulder, we will not be having in-person bid day, and the people who will be at bid day, it's a very limited number of people. It's really only like the new members and a handful of older members, I guess, but that's not really relevant to this conversation. What I'm saying is that at Alabama, they had every single member of theirs at bid day, and Greg Bryan, is basically telling people to wear the masks because they want college football. Which, if your only incentive to play college football if your only incentive to be safe and wear a mask is so you can have college football, I don't know if that is the best outlook to have on life, and I've talked about this as well, but Georgia Governor Brian Kemp has kind of had the same mindset about this all along, in saying that, excuse me, I took out my coffee. If you want college football to happen, wear a mask, and the state of Mississippi mandated a mask order a few weeks ago just so they could play college football. They literally said that in their announcement. And when will people learn that it's not about you, it's about the other people? I personally know that I'm at a lower risk for getting it because of my age demographic, and if I do, I will probably survive, but I know that my grandpa wouldn't. My grandpa's 89 years old, and the odds of him surviving are very low. And I can even look at people I know who have been perfectly healthy and have passed away from coronavirus. You can look at the Broadway actor, I'm forgetting his name, Nick Condor or something. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. Perfectly healthy. He died of coronavirus. So many people we're hearing, mothers and fathers are dying. I mean, really, people just wear a mask and stay safe. Obviously, we've been in this pandemic for gosh knows how long, almost 6 months now. So the idea of staying safe and being healthy and happy is not something that people want to do because it's been so long. They're tired of being at home. They want life to go back to normal. I understand that. I want life to go back to normal. I want college football so badly. But we have to be safe. We have to protect ourselves. And sorry, excuse me, guys. And Catherine O'Neill, who is a infectious disease doctor for LSU, said in a statement that she doesn't know if she could approve such an endeavor of the SEC kicking off this weekend or anytime soon, but that is okay. They don't play a game this week, they don't play next week, or even a month. That is why the SEC, unlike its Western and Midwestern brethren, have not shut down athletics. They are playing later in the season. They still have weeks to go, but the league isn't skipping work steps. Voluntary summer workouts have turned into required workouts, which have turned into enhanced training, and next week there'll be full contact practice. The league's medical panel for the SEC cleared teams for each one of these steps. It is not yet cleared the conference to play a season. O'Neill said in a statement that I cannot speak for the other medical task force, but from our perspective, our questions have been cautious about what is happening today and what's happening in the next couple of weeks. She is an infectious disease physician in Baton Rouge and the leading voice on the league's medical panel. We haven't dared to address what's happening in a month or 2 months. We've said that we met every time we met. Things are going to change so rapidly. Let's proceed cautiously and reevaluate. Which I think is the good mindset to have. In March, if you had told us we wouldn't have a college football season, I mean, that'd be crazy. Literally this morning on my sorority Zoom call, my friend was like, oh my gosh, like, this is your last year, you're a senior now, like, can you imagine your last year of college? When you ended as a freshman, you're taking your fall semester at home, you're not with your friends in Boulder. I mean, can you imagine that? And it's just, no, you can't. Everything changes so fast. And another big point I want to make is that the player empowerment movement is also going far to parents of these players because they're wanting their kids to play and they're getting upset and vocal as well. And another rumor I want to address is Kevin Clark of The Ringer talked about exhibition games that could occur if this season was canceled. They would be 7-on-7 games and potentially sponsored by the XFL. Again, this is a rumor that he talked about on the Bill Simmons podcast, I believe 2 weeks ago now? A week ago. So that would take place if players like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields opted out for the year. These would be exhibition games. They could get paid a little, get sponsorships, get more tape out there and play and put themselves out there for NFL scouts. And how will scouting work this season in the NFL is another big question that many people have had to address as well. Tape has always been incredibly important, but also the scouts this year will not be traveling to Louisville on a Friday night or Tuscaloosa on a Saturday afternoon. These scouts are going to be at home. It's going to be fully virtual. And many players who would have gotten a shot because of their chance to shine in their last season, who have been working so hard, they're not going to get that anymore, which for some teams, which really stinks. This, again, is if the conference is canceled. But just crazy. I mean, you look at Joe Burrow, he was a projected 2nd to 4th round draft pick, I believe, last year before the season started, and then he was like one of the best players in college football history, 1st overall pick by the Bengals, stepped up to the plate, and many players in the Pac-12 and Big Ten are having opportunities shut down for them. which does stink. I feel like in the next couple of months, we're going to see a lot of TikTok tapes. That's kind of a joke, but kind of not. If anyone doesn't know what TikTok is, it is a video app where you can do like 15-second to like 1-minute videos, and essentially just like you can put your highlight tapes out there and everything. It's an easy way for scouts to see it. You can edit it super fancy and stuff, but I think we're going to see a lot of those kind of tapes. We're going to see so much just random clips on Twitter and Instagram and the internet of cool catches players are going to do. I feel like this year is going to be the year of the combine player that kind of jumps out. Will we even have the combine in February? Who knows? But this is really going to be the year of having a combine, like a stud at the combine who is a high vertical or jumps really far, like jump out and be a first round draft pick when they could have been a third or fourth. So it'll be very interesting to see how the NFL works this season, how scouting works, and truly what we're going to do to move forward in football. I cannot stress enough that I want football to happen so badly, and it does scare me that 2 of the conferences have canceled, and despite Justin Fields' best efforts, I don't know if we are going to be able to have a college football season for the Big Ten. They said they're going to play in the spring, but again, how would that work? Would the players just opt out halfway through the season if they get drafted in the first round? Again, so many questions here. And those are kind of the news updates to go through, kind of touching upon that. The SEC, again, released their schedule. They each had 2 new games added, which is very interesting. We'll touch on that next episode. But coming up, we are going to look at some of the biggest storylines to follow in college football this season. You're definitely not going to want to miss that, so stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMc Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMcPodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMcPodcast.com for more info.
And we are back, everybody. Did you miss my voice? Did you miss me taking coffee breaks? Because I am incredibly tired. I don't know what it is. I think it might be the weather, honestly. But when it gets hot out, I just have zero motivation to literally do anything. And I just get exhausted. For some reason, I have been tired like no other recently. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the fact that I stay up till like 1 a.m. every night watching Netflix and TikTok. What are you currently watching on Netflix? I am binge watching The OC for like the 6th or 7th time, honestly. It's kind of embarrassing. Friday Night Lights, as I mentioned last episode, I did restart that because I was dying to watch that, and it made me so happy and brought me so much joy. Really enjoying that. I started Euphoria, if anyone's watched that. I don't think I like it very much, though. Just felt honestly a little uncomfortable watching it. Nothing wrong with that, but I use TV as an escape realm. Anyways, let's get back to it. That was a long segment to say that I'm tired recently, and so I did go get myself another cup of coffee during the commercial break. I did pause it a little, behind the scenes stuff, but also my fan is really saving me right now. Truly my best friend. Is anyone else going through a heat wave? I know Colorado is very hot right now. Really, most of the United States is pretty hot right now. If you are in like an Oregon or a Washington, where I would assume it's a little cooler because you are in the Pacific Northwest, I wish I was you. But anyways, we're going to look at some of the biggest storylines of this college football season, because it is going to be a season unlike any other. I think that is something we can say. No doubt about that in our minds. But Some storylines. Let's get started. So, will the season be canceled? This is the overarching question of the literal whole season. Excuse me, my friend just texted me to ask what kombucha I want. Sorry, everyone, for that momentary interruption. We have a pro tennis player staying with us this week. He's a family friend, and he's picking me up a kombucha because I'm a California girl. Anyways, will the season be canceled? Let's get back into college football because no one cares what kombucha flavor I am asking my friend to pick me up. We've already seen big schools like University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, so UNC, send their students home 1 week into the semester / fully go online. I've touched on this. I've talked to many of my Boulder friends, but I don't see Boulder being in person for much during the semester. I really truly see all of it going online within the first month, and I know that for the dorms and for like my sorority house and everything, if we go online, you will be sent home, which does stink. So, will the season be canceled? Having the students be sent home, I guess, could be a perk from a perk or like a plus for having college football be played. I already think it's known that many of the stands will be at 25% capacity, right? Occupacity. You know what I'm saying. They'll be 25% filled for some of them. Some will not have fans in them at all, which is such a weird feeling. I feel like they'll definitely try to implement noise into the crowd, like the Saints did in the Superdome, but they'll put fake noise in to try and get the feel of a college game. They could even try what the NBA is doing with virtual fans. But, yeah, again, having students sent home could be a plus to college football because it would not have all the students on campus and it would be fully online. I don't believe, like, libraries are going to be open on campus, which is a huge festering pool and just area where students are all the time. I know you can't eat in the dining halls. Just so many weird things. But, yeah, I think there is a 50-50 chance this season gets canceled. For sure. I don't think it's 100% that we're not going to have this season. But, it's definitely 50-50. I think that as campuses start to shut down and people get more comfortable with being at home, I don't know. It's so complicated to see. We've seen that obviously 2 conferences have canceled, and I think that the Big 12 is honestly the big deciding factor because, like I said a few weeks ago, we've already seen that the Big 12 is kind of the wild card because they were the last to release a statement, and so that could make some people believe that they are more skeptical about a season, which is definitely realistic. But, yeah, I think it's about a 50-50 chance. We're definitely going to be covering it through the season. There are going to be cancellations of games. There will be bye weeks because they've already scheduled in 2 to 3 week long bye weeks for these teams just in case of an outbreak or they need to quarantine some players. But there definitely are going to be stretches of time where we don't have college football throughout this season because of the pandemic. But odds a full season is canceled is very 50-50. It is leaning towards like 60-40, but for now we're trying to be optimistic. And then the next subject we will get into here is, will there be skeptic around this season? Will there be an asterisk? So we look at this season any differently? I think there definitely will be an asterisk in like our minds when we think about this college football season, if that makes sense. I don't know if the exact record books are going to have like an asterisk of the of it in the books per se, but I think that we will have an asterisk because it's just such a different season. I mean, 2 of the 5 conferences aren't playing. We don't have the Mountain West. We don't have the MAC. We don't have the Sun Belt Conference. We don't have a majority of teams. I believe that it's now 64 teams that are playing in college football. Sorry, I'm reading a list of how many teams are left. Okay, so as of August 13th, 54 teams have decided not to play college football. So about half of the teams have decided not to play, and I think there's going to be an asterisk because we will also see that some of the big teams like Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State will not play, and therefore it'll be skewed to who the best team really was. You can consider who the contenders are going to be and more, but we're definitely going to look at who was the winner and think, well, what about Oregon and USC and Penn State and Ohio State, and where were they and what they have contended. But these three conferences are playing in the fall, hopefully. Two are playing next spring. Maybe anything happens over the next 9 months, there'll be a heavy asterisk. And, like, how would you give a Heisman Award when about 50% of the teams aren't a little less than 50% of the teams aren't participating, and some of the best players that we're contending are not participating? And how will it be a national championship if half the teams aren't competing? But these are all things you have to consider, and also, will we even make it to September or October? But the thing is, with the less teams playing, more teams that you would not expect are going to come out and showcase what they have. Like you may have noticed, there's basically no diversity in who has made the bracket over the last 5 years, and so I think that having this, like, 2 of the 5 conferences out will give other teams like Baylor, trying to think of another team here, like Baylor, like Oklahoma State and more, give them a chance to kind of break into the group of people we talk about for the college football season. And also, it's a shortened season, so the stats that you're going to see from players are much different than they would be in the past, because a 1,000-yard rushing season is completely different this season than a 2,000-yard rushing season, because there is less games. 60 passing touchdowns, Joe Burrow has that. He has that in the bag. But and again, teams you would not consider, not have considered last year, will be on the rise. So that is something to keep an eye out for this season. And again, another topic to touch on is the player empowerment movement that is going on within college football right now. The hashtag We Want to Play movement, which was headlined by Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, a bunch of other players, as well as the hashtag We Are United movement, which came from a group of Pac-12 players who did not believe that the Pac-12 was doing all it could for the player safety, and they also wanted more diversity and more inclusion. They talked about cutting budgets of these billion-dollar industries and buildings and slashing paychecks even by 10% to give to players or communities that need it, involve more diversity, give people a better chance at life outside football. And I think that we will, this season, with the Black Lives Matter movement going on in the world right now, even though the news is not talking about it as much, it is still something that is going on in our world, and still something that we have to look at and think about. And a majority of these players, they have an opinion, they have a voice, and they are not going to let it slip under the rug just because they're playing college football. We will probably see players kneeling for the national anthem. We will probably see Black Lives Matter t-shirts on the players during warm-ups. I mean, there's no question about that these players this season are going to take a stand. We also have talked about players' unions, and will players be able to have a voice? And it's no question that during the pandemic we have realized that these college football players are more than just free amateur athletes. They are a huge revenue source for the school. And it's very notable to point out that they don't get paid, even though they make up a huge majority of what the school makes throughout the year in their athletic department. And so are we going to view these still as amateur athletes, or are we going to give them some payment? Are we going to allow them to take scholarships or sponsorships or get an agent of some sort through the NCAA? There's going to be a new change in the way these players are viewed as well. I don't know if we'll continue to look at them as just amateurs, because the age-old debate of should we pay college athletes is not going to go away this year or anytime soon. And yes, the social justice in the world and the pandemic, it really showed players their worth and value to the schools and to society, because they have a platform, and just because some of them aren't as famous as Aaron Rodgers or even like Trevor Lawrence out there, they still have a voice and a following and an impact they can make in their community. So again, player empowerment is something to look out for this season, just because it is going to be very prevalent in the minds of many. Because again, while the news has stopped talking about the Black Lives Matter movement as much, it is still going on. We are still trying to involve diversity in our world and really end the systemic racism that we have in this country and focus on that. And then 2 more quick notes to hit. Another topic or thing to look out for, I guess, is the transfer quarterbacks that are coming in. It is a huge transfer quarterback season. We have Jamie Newman, who transferred from Wake Forest. He's getting Heisman potential during this preseason against JT Daniels at Georgia. That is probably like one of the main quarterback competitions to look out for, but there are bigger things to talk about in the world, and I feel like I've touched on that a lot. And we have KJ Costello from Stanford. He is a grad student, and he transferred to Mississippi State. And the transfer quarterbacks this year are going to make an impact, and that's just one little thing to look out for. Because as we know, we love quarterbacks here. And last, two more, actually, I completely forgot about one other segment I want to talk about. And the next storyline to keep an eye out for is Notre Dame in the SEC. So for the first time ever, Notre Dame will be in a conference, which is kind of wild to think about that it's been this long and they're not in a conference. They didn't have much of a choice. They had to join the ACC full-on for the 2020 season to have a season because they were going conference only. And as an independent, you saw with what happened with UConn, they didn't really have a choice. They're eligible for the ACC title and the Orange Bowl berth that comes along with that. Is this a look at Notre Dame's future, and will they be joining the ACC full-on? We've seen the athletic director, Jack Swarbrick, said no, this is merely a one-year marriage of convenience. But as we've seen, the landscape can change fast in the season of COVID. What if Notre Dame beats Clemson twice in a month to win the ACC and gets to the college football playoff? This might be too much of a tease to the Irish fan to say, no, let's go back to being independent. And will Notre Dame stay in the ACC after this season? They're saying no. Actually, the football player who is not the tennis player who is staying with us is a Notre Dame alumni, and he kind of said that for a while Notre Dame fans have been pushing for Notre Dame to join a conference. They've thought about joining the ACC and the Big Ten, and he's kind of always been like, I don't get why we're independent. We're such a good team, but because of our independence, we're often overlooked when it comes to the best teams in the country. And he was like, now I have a chance. We, as Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, have a chance to prove that we are one of the best teams in the country and that we should be respected like that. So that is one thing. And then the last thing I want to touch on before we get on to our third segment of the day is election season, how the election is going to affect the pandemic. I mean, not the pandemic, college football, because as some of you know, we have an election coming up this year, the 2020 presidential election. Go out and vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not going to tell you what I believe. I'm not going to say if you don't vote, you're voting for XYZ, but go out and vote. Use your voice. Make an impact. Make a difference in the country. If you can vote and you're eligible, please do it. I was not eligible to vote at the last election. I was 17, and I definitely wish I could have, but it's okay. It's okay. In the eyes of some people, this is the most important election that our country will ever have and has ever seen, just because of the fact we are literally living through a pandemic, and some people believe that if our leadership had done a better job of maintaining the pandemic, we wouldn't even be talking about, will we have a college football season? Will we be able to go back to campus in the fall? And whether you're a Donald Trump supporter or not, whether you're conservative and Republican or Democratic and liberal, or whether you're an independent and you're in the middle, you just don't know. This election is very pivotal, and our country is very much at odds right now. It's very much one side or the other, and if you support one side, you cannot support the other, is what the media is portraying as well. And this is just a really good time to inform yourself and educate yourself on laws that are going on in the country and things you care about. Personally, for me, over the past 4 years, I really realized all the environmental laws we have, and it sounds so naive to say, but I didn't realize there were so many laws we had to put in place to protect our planet. And as global warming is rising, I mean, it's 95 degrees in my room right now, and it's August. Obviously, it's summer, but it shouldn't be 95 degrees in my room. I live near the beach. And so I really took the time this past 4 years to educate myself on the climate control and what's going on in our world, like planet-wise. And so really educate yourself this year. I've been trying to research a new topic and law or just issue to get into about every single week and really dedicate myself to learning about that. But that's just my little spiel there. Go out and vote. But getting back to college football, many of the red states, or Republican states as they are known as well, are in areas where the world's kind of open. Georgia and Florida, I think of when it comes to mind of like hot spots for the coronavirus. And is it political to keep college football open? Because for many voters, if Trump or our president or his office in general was like, no, we can't have college football, there's definitely a political aspect of those voters getting mad and saying, well, screw that and screw you. And I think that this comes down to states, and if having football is going to sway voters to vote for one person over the other and potentially keep one person in office over the other, then that's important to them, and that's a huge thing. But it has become a very political issue, because keeping these states open and keeping football around and opening states up and making it so people can pretend there's not a virus going on and not wear masks and not social distance and gather in groups of hundreds of people it shouldn't be political, but it is becoming political, and we're kind of just learning what states believe in and like what different government bodies believe in as well. But again, that's something to keep an eye out for, because will the election affect the college football season? We are obviously going to go through the election during the football season, and how will players react to the election results? How will teams react? How will states and schools react? And it's just going to be something very interesting to kind of look at and talk about in the next few months. Again, I do not want to get too political on here or cause an uproar of controversy. I really hope I'm not being controversial. I'm truly just saying what I think, and obviously your political views are your political views, your beliefs are your beliefs. I'm not telling you to vote one way or the other. I'm not telling you to be, I'm not telling you what you can and cannot be. I think maybe you can gather what I believe based on how I'm talking, but also, like, I have my own beliefs, and I'm comfortable with that. But go out and vote, make a difference this year, and let's hope that college football does not get too political. But coming up, I kind of touched on this last episode as well, but we're going to get into 4 ways that we can make college football as fun as possible if the season gets canceled. So stay tuned for that.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back, everybody. Did you enjoy a break from my voice? I know, I enjoyed a break from my voice. When you're recording a 90-minute solo podcast twice a week, you get very tired of your voice. I was talking to my boyfriend about this the other day, and I was like, I don't know how people listen to me, like, for 3 hours a week. I talk so much, like, I can't hear my own voice. Every time I record, I need to, like, take an hour break after to, like, heal my voice, I guess. But we are back, everybody, with a very exciting third segment for you all. I've really been trying to keep it creative here and not just go over the basics of college football. I know that's what you all want to hear, but I also want to incorporate different things about football. And as we get into the season, it's going to be very football heavy, not a lot of fun content for you. I mean, it's going to be fun, but it's not going to be, like, loose or more not as structured, I guess, for you guys. So with that being said, I figured it would be really fun to go through the list that I made for you all a few weeks ago, the top 10 football media list, and go through some of the main movies and review them. I got this idea from the Rewatchables, which is a podcast network on the Ringer podcast network. And the whole concept is you're rewatching a movie, you're talking about it, you're discussing it, and I mean, just seems it'd be a fun thing to do. So we are going over Any Given Sunday, which is an iconic movie of our time, people, if you're a football fan. I know, I'm obsessed with it. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. I'm going to also want to say there might be spoilers in this, so if you don't want spoilers, I'm sorry. Let's get into it today. So, I'm going to read you guys a recap that I got from IMDb. They summarized it better than I could, and this is from an anonymous source. So 4 years ago, the Miami Sharks won the Pantheon Cup. This year, they are at best a middling team on a 3-game losing streak with a 7-5 record with 4 games left in the season. They are still in the hunt for a playoff spot. Playoff spot becomes more difficult to achieve as in the fourth to last game against the Minnesota Americans. Their top 2 quarterbacks are injured. Veteran first-round string Cap Rooney leaving the quarterback duties for the rest of the season to third-string Willie Beeman, who may be more emotionally and experienced, ill-prepared for the role he is technically. That inexperience and immaturity manifests themselves into acts of snowboating on the field, leading to issues between him, the other players, and 30-year head coach Tony D'Amato, who wants to see some discipline on the field. Tony already faces problems off the field with new general owner/general manager Christina Panici, the only female owner in the league. She inherits the team after her father Art Panici after his passing. While Tony and Art have a gentleman's agreement type of relationship, Christina, who grew up calling Tony Uncle Tony, isn't afraid to flex her muscles to make the team a success. She's seeing the team coaching future in young offensive coordinator Nick Corzier. Her ultimate goal is to move the team to the larger market of Los Angeles. Timely in her issues with how little she is seeing the Miami Mayor Tyrone Smells put into maintaining the aging stadium, or that has not been much talk about replacing it. The team, however, has to be successful for her to have the money. Back on the field, Cap, they will believe will be healthy enough to be in the playoffs, comes to the realization that if Willie gets into the playoffs, he may be the favored starter in the playoffs, especially seeing to Cap's age, time off, and age. Cap's health issues is minor compared to those of linebacker Luther Larvey, who highlights the differences between team doctors Harvey Mandrake and Ollie Powers, who sit on opposite sides of the players' welfare versus overall team success at all costs debate. Again, this is from an IMDb anonymous source, and this movie stars Dennis Quaid, Cameron Diaz, Jamie Foxx, and Al Pacino headlining the movie role. And Any Given Sunday was really a movie that kind of radicalized how we looked at football. I feel like for a while we always saw football as kind of this man's league, and we were always very skeptical of it, and I always used to see it as kind of just this cookie-cutter league, nothing really happened. And this movie really opened our eyes to what goes on and off the field in football and all the issues that stem from it, like racism and xenophobia, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, money problems, and Any Given Sunday turned Jamie Foxx into a star. It revolutionized the way football could be filmed and developed the issues developed issues still plaguing the league, such as racism, sexism, ageism, the sports media, the public financing of stadiums, drug abuse, and concussions. This was also a huge movie that, when we look back, really focused on CTE. I mean, CTE, I feel like, really has come into the forefront of football discussions over the last 10 years with the suicide of Junior Seau and other notable football players. And in the early 2000s, late 90s, we didn't really talk about CTE. I think we were all aware of concussions and the impact it can have, but no one was aware of the long-term severity that it would have as well. And this movie really just showcased how serious concussions are and the way it can affect someone's entire life. I mean, I've never been lucky to experience a concussion, but I know people who have post-concussion syndrome, and it's just really scary. And I really appreciated how this movie also touched on drug abuse as well, because especially nowadays, I feel like as I've gotten older, I really see that drug abuse is so prevalent in day and age. Just with a normal person, it can be prevalent. And so with football players, they're surrounded by all this drugs, all this wealth and fame they're not used to, and they go from being, some of them, incredibly poor and on the streets to being millionaires and sometimes billionaires in the course of like 10 years. And so it's just crazy the way that money can spiral out of control. And also the sexism in football is something I've always personally been incredibly aware of as a woman trying to go into sports and athletics. It's something that's always been in the back of my mind. I've never felt like I'm fully qualified to be in sports, and I know I am. I know that as a woman, my voice needs to be heard in sports, and I want to revolutionize that, but I'm also very aware that as a woman covering football or trying to cover football, I'm told by men all the time. I just look at guys at Boulder who I'll be in a class with them and I'll tell them, oh, I want to cover sports, and they'll just laugh and be like, okay, honey, like stick to cooking magazines or like gossip articles. Like I've always been told that I've never been good enough to be in the world of football as a woman. And this movie really opened my eyes to having a female owner. Obviously, that was a huge role of the movie, was that there was sexism involved and the way she was discriminated against and looked at because she was a woman and an attractive woman in the eyes of many. And like I said, as a woman in football, I'm told I can't do it very often, which is very discouraging, because I'm someone that lets outside noise really get to my head, which is something you really can't do when you're working in media. And it is something I'm working on. But when you're in a class with like 20 kids and you're told by different people, like men that are your peers, that you can't do something because you are a woman, because of the gender you were given, you were born, it makes you feel kind of sucky about yourself. And I want to read an excerpt from The Dissolve, which is a media website. So Oliver Stone, who is the co-writer of this movie, director of this movie, he goes, Oliver Stone and his co-writer John Logan, who adapted the novel by ex-player Pat Tomley, didn't set Any Given Sunday in the actual NFL, which is undoubtedly why they were able to describe the league so accurately, because they do not need NFL approval. At times, Any Given Sunday's version of pro football feels so abstract that it might as well be taking place in some other dimensions, where teams like the Chicago Rhinos and the New York Emperors compete in the Associated Football franchises of America to win the Pantheon Cup. Only offhand references to real players like Y.A. Tittle and Sammy Bogg, and real products like the nutritional supplements RX, ground Any Given Sunday in this reality. So Any Given Sunday, as they're kind of saying, you look at movies like Draft Day, that really needed the approval of the NFL, and the NFL had to dictate and oversee because they couldn't expose it in the way that this movie did. They didn't use the NFL titles, they didn't use the NFL logos, and so while the on-field stuff, the Pantheon Cup and just the on-field the way the on-field football was in this movie is not necessarily realistic, the off-field stuff really is. And because they didn't have the approval from the NFL, because they didn't use their licensing or their titles, they really got to be creative and really showcase the NFL. And this might be like the journalism art major inside of me, or English person side of me, but watching this movie again last night kind of made me realize that this movie not so much is a case about football, it's really a case about the world of football and how money and power can get to some players' heads. I mean, we talked about earlier with drug abuse that goes on in this league, and these owners are billionaires, and a huge part of the movie is how they can't get the funding for the stadium and they have to win, and seeing all these players get millions of dollars in their first year as a starter and letting the money go to their head, it's kind of crazy to see. Look at Willie Beeman, who is the third-string quarterback, and once he gets successful and starts playing, the power goes to his head. You see him partying all the time and thinking he can do anything, that he's invincible. And that's pretty scary to think about, because it's very realistic. It happens to a lot of us. I know kids at Boulder, like guys who start on the team and have some success, they let the power get to their heads, and they're college football players. So I can't imagine how it is in the pros when you're making millions of dollars. And for many, again, you go from making nothing to millions in like a year, and just the way that impacts your life. And this reminds you that anything can truly happen in football. The title, Any Given Sunday, likes to remind us that football is not a given. Nothing is a given in life. I feel like I say it every single week, but truly nothing is a given in college football, and we cannot assume one team is going to win that year or one team is going to do poorly that year, because nothing is a given. And we can have assumptions and we can have predictions and we can analyze rosters and teams and see how their teams are being built and how that will determine the season, but nothing is a given in football. And the title, Any Given Sunday, really showcases that literally any given Sunday, anything can happen, and it's really just, it's incredible. I don't want to say like, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest movie ever made. It's definitely not Oscar-winning per sense, and it's not going to be looked at as like some critically acclaimed film, but it's a worth watching. If you have not watched it, I really recommend it, and I really suggest that you take the time to acknowledge it and get to know it. What am I saying? I think I've told this story, but I'm going to tell it again. I remember watching this movie for the first time with my grandpa. My dear old, he was 86, I believe, at the time, still alive. Hi, Grandpa Bill, if you're listening to this. And I remember hearing about this movie from the Rewatchables with Bill Simmons and being like, oh my gosh, Granddad, he's the reason I got into football. He's the reason I love football. Like, I owe all my knowledge of football to him, like my basic knowledge. And one day I called him at school and I was like, we have to watch this movie. It's supposed to be really good and really, like, well done. I think we'd really like it together. It'd bond us, because a huge thing my grandpa and I like doing is watching football. And so I remember he rented the movie on, like, from the library or something on, like, a little DVD. My grandpa still uses the library, and it's so cute. Like, he gets all his movies from there. That was before COVID, obviously, and this is besides the point. But we sat down to watch it. I remember I was having a Diet Coke, and, like, the first 5 minutes is, like, a full nudity scene and, like, cocaine being done on someone's body. And I remember, like, shutting off, like, looking at my grandpa, and he was just laughing at me, and I was mortified. And he also, like, hates rap music, I have to say, and so he did not really enjoy this movie. I cannot lie, but this is not a movie to watch with parents or your grandpa, especially your 86-year-old grandpa. It's very profane. It's rated R for a reason. I believe it is about 2 hours and 46 minutes, or 2 hours and 30 minutes, what am I saying? It's a long movie, so if you're like me and don't have a good attention span, then this is probably a movie you should watch in multiple sittings. I also want to point out that, again, the sexism in this movie kind of does make me sad, and I'm happy to know that as a society we have evolved to look beyond someone's gender to decide if they're good at a role. Obviously, we still have a long ways to go with pay grade and raises and how women are treated in the workforce. I mean, my best friend has an internship right now, and she often talks to me about how the male interns are being paid and she's unpaid, and I personally believe that's unfair because they're doing the same amount of work, and why is she not being paid, but these male interns are. And also a crazy thing to look back on this movie is pre-9/11, and I just feel like our world, obviously, I think I was about 2 or 3 years old when 9/11 happened, and so I don't remember what the world was like before that. I was born in 1999. I was born the year this movie came out, but my parents always tell me, like, you could walk through security and be, like, you could get to the airport 30 minutes before your flight and not go through security and just show up to your gate. I mean, it's crazy the way our world has changed and evolved since 9/11, and just how much more relaxed we all were about everything. I feel like this movie really just is so relaxed on drugs and alcohol, and there are guns involved, and I mean, looking forward now, it's definitely how our world is. We're much more uptight. And this is just a really weird, like, it's not weird, but it's just a really good example of how America was at the end of the 20th century, especially with football. Football really was on the come up. At this point, it was a huge part of society, and fantasy football was becoming huge, and podcasts were starting to happen. We were starting to have radio shows, columnists were popping up, and really football was becoming the thing. It always has been the thing for a while. Football has always kind of been America's love and pastime, and the thing that people enjoy on their Sundays above all else. But this movie kind of showcased that football was it, and football was the main hobby for many people in America, which is kind of crazy to think about, how one sport can go from being nothing to transforming the lives of millions of people. I mean, I don't know where I would be without football. I definitely probably wouldn't be on this podcast right now, but that's how, like, people feel about soccer in some cases, and it's just crazy how a sport can take over a world like that for one season. Like, you can look at the Super Bowl week and how it takes over every single aspect of America. I mean, everyone's talking about the Super Bowl. Even if you don't even watch football, you know nothing about football, you're watching the Super Bowl for the commercials or the halftime show or the food. And it's just so funny to me how football, like, encapsulates America in the way. It's such a captivating game. And even if you don't enjoy football, usually my friends who hate football will find themselves watching a game every few weeks with our friends, or just hearing about football, or they'll know, like, major news that goes on. It's just crazy to me. And Any Given Sunday showcases also the power that football has and the power that a football player has towards the fans as well, and how that power really goes to their head. Because, like I said, Willie Beeman was kind of not arrogant per se, but he definitely got famous quickly in this movie, and it really just showcased how fame gets to your head. And also, my MVP of this movie, the best part for me, is Al Pacino's character, Coach Tony, or Uncle Tony, as Christina likes to call him. His speech at the end of the movie is truly iconic. I wish I could plug it, but for copyright reasons, I cannot. And so I just want to say that if you have 4 minutes of your time, go listen to the Any Given Sunday speech that Al Pacino gives. It's truly mesmerizing. It's iconic. It really just, it does it all for you. And that's definitely my MVP of the movie. I mean, any movie Al Pacino is in, I feel like I really enjoy and, like, genuinely have a good time listening to. But there we have it, guys. That is my Any Given Sunday recap. I plan on doing more movies on this list. I really want to do a Friday Night Lights recap, but I don't, like, would I have to go season by season with that? Like, could I do that? I feel like I could. Maybe I'll do that. we'll save that for next off season. Hopefully that's not sooner than we thought it would be. But coming up for our last segment, we have a top 10 list. You are not going to want to miss. There might be a little controversy around that, so stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMc Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Hello everybody, and we are back with our final segment of the day. It is so hot in my room. I genuinely feel heat stroke coming on. I don't know, I've never had heat stroke, so I don't want to be insensitive, but it's incredibly hot. I have never been someone that does well in heat. I am the biggest complainer. You can ask any of my friends, ask my boyfriend, ask literally anyone in my life. The moment it gets above 80 degrees, I'm like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. Like, I need to go into air conditioning. I am the worst person to do, like, anything super outside in the summer because I'm like, nope, I can't do it. Also, something fun about me while we're on the subject is if anyone else is like this, I literally will not go somewhere if I don't know what the parking situation is like. I can't parallel park to save my life. I've had my license for 5 years, and when I say, like, I can't parallel park, like, it's bad. Like, I cannot do it. I've never learned. I'm not good at it. I've never parallel parked, and if I don't know the parking situation of some area, like, I know there's not going to be a big parking lot with open spaces to park in. I know there's street parking. It's going to be stressful. There's a lot of traffic. I won't do it. The beach, for example, I always make my friends drive to it because I just cannot park at the beach. My friends make fun of me for this all the time. I'll usually be like, so can anyone else drive? Like, not me, because I have the biggest car out of my friends, but I still make them drive. But yeah, parking, really stressful, not a fun thing for me. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. I don't think anyone likes parking, if we're being honest. Does anyone like parking? It's just one of those things in life that no one enjoys. But my parents always make fun of me. I don't have a backup camera in my car either. Like, can you blame me? I can't really do anything about it. But I guess my parents are going to judge me for it. Who knows? I mean, they usually judge me for a lot of things. So, you know, do with that what you will. But we have an exciting top 10 list for you guys today. I've really been trying to get into the fan top 10s and kind of do more lighthearted ones because, again, I do want to dive into, like, top 10 quarterbacks, top 10 finishes, but I figured we'd keep it lighthearted today as well and do a top 10 fan bases in college football. This is going to be controversial because I left a lot of schools off here. There are 130 teams in the FBS, and I left 120 off here. So if your team is not on here, I'm sure you guys have an amazing fan base. Again, I go to Boulder, for example. I mean, how many times can I say that? And I would think we have the best fan base in the nation, but I know we don't. I also know that I can't put Boulder at number 1 on the list for everything because, I mean, people are going to disagree with me, and people are going to call me biased, and they're going to call me out for it. And I mean, you're right, I am biased, okay? I just love my school. But obviously, I think Boulder is the best because biased, and I'm not going to say that. These are also my opinions. These are not facts. I have not, like, been like, well, according to this statistic, this school is better than this school fan base because of this. Don't get mad if your school isn't on here. I'm sure you guys have a great fan base as well. I'm just highlighting some great fan bases here. These are just my little disclaimers here, so don't come at me in, like, the mentions or the reviews or anything, but yes, let's kick it off here. At number 10, we have the Wisconsin Badgers. I think I've talked about this on here, but Wisconsin was my dream school. When I say dream school, I mean I tried for 10 years to do everything I could to get into Wisconsin. I remember my best friend, or one of my best friends, her sister went to Wisconsin, and I remember from then on there, I was like, I knew I had to go there. I was like, well, I know someone there. It was looked like the most amazing school. I don't remember why I was so obsessed with it. I just really think I was. I wanted to be a Badger so badly. I did get rejected from the school because I'm out of state and I did not have the grades for it, and I'm very aware of that. But yeah, where was I going with this? Yeah, I always wanted to be Wisconsin Badger, and I went to, I believe it was their homecoming game in fall of 2015. It was the Badgers versus the Purdue Boilermakers. So it was Purdue versus Wisconsin. It was like a Saturday noon game. I remember being freezing there, even though it was like 60 degrees and sunny in like October. And my parents were shocked. They were like, Danielle, the weather will never be this nice here. Like, be prepared for that. I put Wisconsin at number 10 because when I went to that game, the fan base was amazing. I mean, I literally remember writing my college essay about why I wanted to go to Wisconsin because the jump around, if you don't know what the jump around is it is their fourth quarter tradition where before the start of the fourth quarter, they jump around, they sing like jump around, and they like, it's like a thing they do, I guess, and the band gets super into it, and I remember seeing like, I want that in my school. And the traditions are just great there. I mean, Wisconsin is a really great school to go to in general, and the fans are so into it. I feel like Midwestern football schools especially just get so into their football. I mean, all schools really do at the end of the day, but you cannot stop them, especially in the cold. I mean, I have a friend that goes there, and she'll tell me it's negative 10 degrees at a game sometimes, and like the stands will be packed with people. They'll wear like 6 layers of clothes, but the fans will be packed. And they have really great outfits. They have these overalls that are really great. People wear Badger costumes. You really cannot stop the fans here. They just own it, and they know what to do. So at number 9, we have the Alabama Crimson Tide. Roll Tide, as they say. Roll Tide, is that how you say it? They're so dedicated. I forget what podcast I was listening to, but I was listening to a podcast where someone was talking about the Alabama LSU game. And the way that leading up to football games in Tuscaloosa, about Alabama, it doesn't matter if it is a game against a Division III school. It doesn't matter if it is the LSU game. They prepare their whole week for football. It is their life there. Football, they eat, sleep, breathe football. And I don't blame them. I mean, if I had a team like Alabama to root for, I would do that as well. But they plan their whole weeks and years out for the games. I was listening to an interview as well, and one of the people was talking about how about 70% of the revenue that comes from some of the companies in Tuscaloosa is from football season. And, I mean, concession workers, it's just, football is everything there. You get into Bryant-Denny Stadium in late August, early September, it's probably 100 degrees there. You are sweating, and they do not care. They are so passionate. The stadium is massive. They sit through 100-plus degree heat in the fall, and they also know the team inside out. Every Alabama fan you meet can name at least 20 players on the roster, and that's just impressive. At number 8, we have the Tennessee Vols, the University of Tennessee. There's this one song called I'm a Vol for Life. I don't remember how I found it. I'm obsessed with it. I'm not a Tennessee fan per se, but such a good song. I think it's I'm a Vol for Life. Y'all? Not sure. But I'm not going to sing it for you because I can't sing to save my life. But really good song if you're a Tennessee fan. I recommend that. And that song, like, I don't know, it just reminded me, Tennessee fan base is so strong. I mean, the history of Peyton Manning there and everything, obviously. But there's also the song Happy by Halftime by Morgan Wallen. Fantastic song, I have to say. But they just, I mean, they are passionate about their fandom there. They know what they are doing. They care about football in Tennessee. They haven't seen too much success recently, honestly, but they're still incredibly dedicated to their fan base. They care so much. They always show up and have a good time. So yeah, at number 7, we have Nebraska. The Nebraska Cornhuskers. I've mentioned my boyfriend is a Nebraska Cornhusker. His whole family is, and he is so passionate about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. He will fight me to the death on the fact that I put them at number 7 and not number 1. He cares so much about them. I will say they do have a great fan base. Since dating him, I've realized that they do have a great fan base, and their fans are way more passionate than I thought they were, which is kind of crazy to me. But yes, the Nebraska Cornhuskers are at number 7. They have a consecutive streak of, I think, 104 sold. Oh, I'm looking this up. I don't think it's 104. They have sold out an NCAA record at 375 consecutive games at Memorial Stadium. This is a streak that dates back to 1962. That's just insane. So, I mean, with this upcoming season, will they be playing? Will that record stay put? I don't know, but they hold the NCAA for the most consecutive sellout games. This still goes back. I mean, they care so much about football there. Everyone loves it. I mean, they're Cornhuskers. What can I say? Similar to Wisconsin, when it's cold, they still show up. They have not had a bunch of success recently with the Scott Frost era. They are still dedicated fans and will do anything for their Cornhuskers. I think I've talked about this story. No, I haven't. So I think when I was 11 or 12, I went to a Nebraska University of Arizona bowl game, and they had the same uniforms, and my grandma went to Arizona, so we were rooting for Arizona, and I kept rooting for Nebraska because of their uniforms, but also, like, the entire stadium was cheering, and I was like, well, we're in San Diego, like, everyone must have gone to Arizona, and nope, it was 95% Cornhusker fans there. We came to San Diego for this game. I mean, who wouldn't want to come to San Diego in December versus be in Nebraska? Just my humble opinion, but absolutely insane. Cornhusker fans are so dedicated. They also just care so much. I mean, like I said, my boyfriend, like, could talk my ear off about Cornhusker football, and it gets kind of annoying sometimes, because I'm like, all right, like, I get it, you're a Cornhusker, but they just care about it so much. I think it's part of being in Nebraska. What else is there to do? I'm sorry to any Nebraska people listening. I'm sure it's a great state. I've not been, but go Cornhuskers at number 7. At number 6, we have the UT Austin, Texas Longhorns. Similar to Alabama, it is a religion and lifestyle for them. One of my good friends goes there, and she literally said that many people picked Texas because of the football team, which is a lot of people. I mean, I almost did that with one of my schools, but the Texas Longhorns, they are the team in Texas. I mean, Texas Tech, Houston, TCU, they want to rival it, but nothing beats UT Austin. The Longhorns, the Matthew McConaughey tradition, the student section shows up like no other. It's a lifestyle. Football really is a lifestyle in Austin. I mean, they plan their whole weeks out for this. I know many people who travel near and far. I know one person who goes to every single game each season who goes to Austin. She will travel every single weekend for it, even if they're playing in Oklahoma, or they could literally be playing in Rhode Island, and she would fly out for it. At number 5, we have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. These fans arrive in style. They have such great tailgate outfits, I have to say. Always stylish with their Lucky Charms, put together, the gold and navy, really great. They do not let the weather stop them either. And the Fighting Irish are dedicated to the sport. I feel like they have some of the great tradition of alumni that have gone there. I know many people who, their parents went there, and they go out there, and their grandparents went there. Like I said, we have a tennis player staying at our house right now, and he played at Notre Dame, and he said that the tradition the fans have is unlike any other. And I asked him what he thought of the fan base, and he quotes, nothing can beat it. I mean, who wouldn't want to be a Fighting Irish? It's also that many people who go to Notre Dame are very proud to go to Notre Dame, and so they love cheering on their team. They love being there. Weather does not stop them. The tailgates start early and often in South Bend as well. I also feel like you see a lot of media people who went to Notre Dame as well, which is kind of fun. But yeah, Notre Dame at number 5. They have a fan base of over 100 years as well, and like I said, generations of family. They are dedicated. I feel like Notre Dame is one of those schools that if like 4 generations go there, you kind of go there. At number 4, we have University of Georgia. We have the Georgia Bulldogs. So I found out today that there's a Chick-fil-A concessions. Chick-fil-A in their concession stands. So if that's not more motivation to go, then I don't know what is. Because I would want to go if I had a Chick-fil-A concession in my stand. Boulder, if you're listening, please put a Chick-fil-A stand, or maybe an In-N-Out stand. Chick-fil-A has its controversies, obviously, but Boulder, if you're listening, please put a Chick-fil-A stand in the state in Folsom Field, because I would love that, and everyone else would, and you'd get great turnout at the games, especially from me. You would just get it from me. You can make so much money off me going to these games. So what's not to love? There's a Chick-fil-A stand. I've always wanted to go to UGA for some reason. It was similar to Wisconsin. I don't know why I was obsessed with it. I really was. It was always the school I wanted to go to. I did not get in because I was not smart enough to get in. As you apply to colleges, you realize all these schools are actually kind of good schools, and you have to be smart to get in there, and I was not smart in high school. I was smart in high school, but, you know, Boulder's a great school. And so there's a special meaning there for Georgia. I also know that I have some friends that go there, and they're very passionate about the student section and the games. They really make an effort to go to the games, which is one thing I've noticed at Southern schools a lot. Boulder, and I mean, I can just speak from Boulder experience, not a lot of students go to the games. Not a lot of students make it, but at Southern schools, I feel like it's a tradition to go to the games and make it there. And it's a very special stadium to be in. Stanford Stadium truly is just an iconic place to watch football. At number 3, we have the Clemson Tigers. Is it Clemson University? I think it's Clemson University. We have the Clemson Tigers. They're the reigning powerhouses of college football besides LSU. You have, obviously, Rocky Top. You have Howard's Rock and the rubbing of the rock that they do as they run past. It's always packed on screen. The fans are so energetic. They're so excited. The recent success of their team, it definitely helps. I mean, they call it Death Valley for a reason. It is hard to play a game there as a road team. Teams are energetic. They're excited. They're happy to be there. Crowds are packed. At number 2, I've clustered 3 teams together. We have Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. So we have the Buckeyes, we have the Wolverines, and we have the Nittany Lions. So I'm just going to read you some excerpts I found from an NBC article that perfectly describes it. Burtis Buckeye, the horseshoe, and a collection of fans bitter about the Bengals and Browns might be the Ohio State University. During the Eye, singing Hang On Snoopy, yep, they've got tradition, they've got intensity, they're legit. And this is what they read about Wisconsin. The third largest and third percentage of capacity ticket sales in 2018, when they end up actually having a disappointing season. Maize and Blue and 45 degrees feel like Saturday. So these 3 teams could literally have a 0-12 season and still have sold out stadiums. Fans of these 3 schools live, breathe, and eat football. It's something about the cold weather and the Big Ten and the rivalry that goes on between these games that really makes them care and passionate and want to play football. There's something about it. I can't describe what it is. I've been to Michigan games. I've been to Ohio State games. And it's just the intensity there. These fans care so much. And so let's go over my list here before we get to number 1. So number 10, we have the Wisconsin Badgers. Again, the cold does not stop them, and lifelong fans. I've been to a game there, so I do have a little bias. At number 9, we have the Alabama Crimson Tide. Roll Tide. They are so dedicated. They literally plan out their lives for football and will sit through 100-degree heat. So that's big props to you. At number 8, we have Tennessee Vols. I'm Vol for Life, y'all. Great song. They care about the history, and they've not had much success recently, but that has not stopped them. At number 7, we have the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I'm honestly thinking they might maybe deserve to be a little higher on this list, but they're at number 7. Consecutive streak of 365 sold-out home games in a row dating back to 1962, or 375, excuse me. Have not had a bunch of success recently in the Scott Frost era, but they're still dedicated. At number 6, we have the UT Austin, Texas Longhorns. The Longhorn fans are obsessed with football. They are dedicated. They love it. It brings them their pride and joy, and it's all they think about during the week. At number 5, we have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They arrive in style, and they do not let the weather stop them. It could be negative 10 degrees in South Bend, and they will still be showing up to play football. Generations of families go to this school. They care so much. They're so passionate. They're so proud to be a Notre Dame fan. At number 4, we have UGA because they have a Chick-fil-A concessions in their stadium, and that's enough to be number 4 on my list, in my opinion. At number 3, we have Clemson, Death Valley, Howard's Rock, all the tradition there. The recent success of the team has definitely boosted them a lot. They are a powerhouse in college football to be reckoned with. At number 3, we have Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. We've looped them together for one Big Ten category because all these teams are so dedicated. They scream football. Football is everything to them. And really, I mean, I can't think of college football without these 3 teams. And at number 1, we have Baton Rouge, Death Valley. I mean, not Death Valley. We have the LSU Tigers, Baton Rouge, on a Saturday night. I mean, it's a bucket list item for college football fans. You feel lucky to escape with your soul, much like the healthy football team, the atmosphere, tradition, and absolute deafening noise. It's just incredible. It is on my bucket list to go there. There's nothing that beats this stadium. It truly is life-changing. The fans of LSU are so passionate. Live Tiger. I mean, you cannot hear. The pregame atmosphere there is absolutely insane. If you have not watched an LSU game on TV, then you are missing out because it is something else. And with that being said, you guys, we have our top 10 list today. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode of the GSMc College Football Podcast. I hope you all have a safe and healthy Monday. Stay safe, wear your mask, drink water, stay cool out there. I know it's hot for most of us. And remember to enjoy your Monday. And also don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us. Don't forget to follow us on our social media, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Leave us a review. Subscribe to us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. And thank you for listening to the GSMc College Football Podcast. Have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, part of the GSMc Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMc Podcast Network. From football to basketball, baseball to MMA, and even soccer. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast.